All right, we know that the EV-1 from General Motors was not a great car, as it is still not in production, right? We don't see these out on the road. Many of you have probably never even heard of it before now. And in fact, it was the subject of a documentary titled, "Who Killed the Electric Car?" So why did it die? What were the problems with this zero emissions vehicle? Well, a study conducted by a group of researchers at Carnegie Mellon University, Lav et al., they showed that electric cars of the time, the EV-1 especially, would not reduce emissions. So what were the problems? Well, first of all, the cars were fully powered by batteries. Now, we have battery-powered cars today out on the road, but there's a difference. The batteries back then were lead acid. So let's think about this. Cars fully powered by batteries. This was problem number one because the batteries, first of all, need to be recharged. And how do we recharge batteries? We need energy, right? Electricity, to be exact. And where does electricity come from? Well, in California, probably natural gas. Majority of it came from natural gas. Some probably from renewable sources as well, but this was back in the 90s, so probably predominantly natural gas. And guess what? Electricity production has air emissions. Also, at that time, the batteries were lead acid. What are the issues with this? Well, they had to be very, very large. They were heavy, 1,100 pounds each. What that means is that a large amount of lead is needed. And to manufacture lead, there is significant emissions, but to recycle lead is more difficult. It causes problems in our landfill as well. So lead acid or lead production has emissions, and lead disposal has some waste, some toxic waste issues. So the fact that these batteries were large and heavy meant that more energy was required to move the car. The vehicles were heavier than normal cars. And the fact that the batteries were lead acid meant we had emissions, air emissions, waste emissions, and disposal of those batteries was considered toxic. Actually, more lead was released from these vehicles than vehicles without ZEVs. So an LCA, a life cycle assessment, could have pointed these things out, but it was not performed originally. They had a very narrow viewpoint when they were thinking about these cars as being zero emissions. They were only concentrating on the final product. The car itself did not have a tailpipe, so no emissions, right? No, they did not think about the life cycle. And if we thought about the entire life cycle, we would see that these cars actually produced more air emissions during the entire life cycle than our normal cars with tailpipes.